What's up?
Hey,
Can
everybody.
you hear that?
Yeah, it's good. It's on your new soundtrack.
So how are you?
I'm good.
How's your day?
Well, it's just started.
That's right. What time is it there?
8 o'clock.
A.M.
Yeah, 8 a.m. So I've been in here about half an hour, something like that.
All right. Have you had coffee yet?
I have.
What kind of coffee do you drink?
Strong cafe latte.
All right.
Yeah. We're kind of really into our coffee, and it's pretty. Everyone's into their coffee, but Melbournes are a little bit snobby about their coffee, I think. We've got a bit of a reputation for it.
We drink like pansy coffees.
Yeah, I know you have the big sort of, Petri dish type thing. Sits around in the diner all day, sort of thing.
Yes.
You get it's so bloody disgusting. So.
They are on the large size.
Yeah. No, look, I've come because when I've come over to the States to teach, it's up in New Hampshire, and there's no sort of espresso machines up that way. So I'm used to drinking sort of drip coffee and stuff like that. The sort of stuff that you guys normally drink. I've got a bit of a taste for it now. So.
Okay, and that's the heavier stuff, right? The stronger stuff.
No, espresso can be pretty strong. Yeah, it depends on what sort of coffee you have. It's just sort of running it through a machine, basically.
Okay.
That's something.
I don't drink coffee.
You don't drink coffee?
No, I don't drink coffee. I don't drink alcohol. Never smoked or done any drugs.
No wonder you look so bloody healthy.
I'm not healthy, man. I'm like 30 pounds overweight. I love pizza and cake.
Still being middle-aged.
All right.
If you didn't get the prices robbed, I don't know if we could talk.
People would always say, I never trust a man that doesn't drink.
As long as you eat cake, I think we're fine.
Yes, I too much cake. Too much cake.
Yeah.
So, you ready? We're going to go through a series of questions.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the conversation. What word or phrase do you overuse?
Probably I can't think of anything in particular. If someone's a bit on the outs of someone, I'm generally a pretty peaceable person. I might call someone droopy drawers.
Pretty draws?
Droopy drawers.
Drippy draws.
Yeah, as in old droopy drawers over there.
All right. What is your least favorite thing to do?
Well, probably sanding.
What's that?
Sanding.
Yes, but these are life questions, not necessarily shop questions.
Boy, that's part of my life.
It's up there, right? For me too. Sanding's up there in life. It's a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
What is your most favorite thing to do?
I would say, that sort of thing, it changes throughout your life, doesn't it? But probably just hanging around with my family.
How big is your family?
I was just three of us. My wife, Alice, and my son, Flan. They may or may not be watching. So hi, Flan and Alice, if you're watching. What's
up, Flan and Alice? Alice, if you're watching, there's going to be a couple of questions you may want to chime in or not.
Yeah, right.
What is the one thing Alice would like to change about you?
My cleaning habits, perhaps.
Or lack thereof.
We both have strengths, her strengths are stronger than mine, though. That's all.
That's what a partnership is about.
That's it.
If you were to travel across country on a motorcycle, who would you take with you?
Well, if I wasn't away for too long, maybe I'd take, just one of my mates, my mate Dom, or, I've got a few close friends I've known since a kid.
Okay.
So maybe one of them.
All right. If you were in a bar and a fight broke out, would your wife be more likely to call the police or grab the gun?
My wife or me?
Your wife.
She'd call the police.
She'd call the police.
Yeah, we're not very gunny. Yeah. Unless you live on a farm, sort of thing, you know.
Well, no, it's just a question. That's all.
Yeah, I like it.
There's no good or bad answer.
It might surprise me and just be complete badass and just pull the gun out and break it all down for everyone. You know?
What makes you tick?
Family.
All right. What irks you the most?
Hurts?
Irks you the most. Gets on your nerves.
Something that happened on the weekend is a good example. I'm a bit of a football fan, Australian rules football, when my team loses or just when they play really bad. So it's a pretty lame sort of irk, but, you know, as far as superficial irks go, that's you know, something that irks.
That's fine. What kind of football is Australian football? Rugby?
It's Australian rules. So rugby comes from England. You know, Australian rules is something that was invented here. You got to watch it, Rob. You know, it's played on a cricket field. It's, you know, like a cricket field. It's like a big oval. So there's no, you know, they're all kind of different sizes to a degree. There's 18 per side. You got forwards, backs, and centre. There's
Go ahead.
It's a ridiculous thing to describe, but there's like goal posts, and then there's point posts on either side of it. If you kick it through the centre, 6 points, and it's in either side of that is each. It's a 360 game like basketball, where you can sort of run in any direction with the ball or anything like that. You can only 5 meters, then you've got to get the ball, something like that. You can mark the ball, but to kick the ball, you sort of, you know, your punters. There's some
that's what they run and kick the ball a lot, right?
Yeah, it's all running and kicking the ball. Yeah. You drop it from your foot, from your hands and onto your foot. Like,
yeah, I've seen a lot of that.
Well, actually, a former captain of my team, the Geelong Cats, Ben Graham he punted for the Jets for a while.
Okay,
I think
cool.
Or something like that. So because they kick all the time, so a lot of them got these monster kicks. So
yeah, and you have a lot of professional football kickers, right?
There's been a few in the NFL. Yeah,
I think the guy that played at LSU.
There's one guy in particular who was over early and apparently was really good. And he sort of did this thing where, I'm not sure if this is right or not, but because, you know, the punters, they normally just come on and kick the ball and stuff like that. But he stayed on and tackled some guy, or everyone's going, what? Can you do that? You know, so.
Yeah, that's what the guy from LSU, I don't remember his name. But he was good. He played for the Giants.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I don't even know that.
What sound makes you happiest?
Sound that makes me... Oh, actually, probably bird song. Certain birds. There's 2 birds here, a currawong, which I really love. My mum's from Sydney, and I really associate them with Sydney, although you do hear them in Melbourne now. They've moved a bit further south. And also Australian magpies, carol, warbling sort of song. So probably those 2 birds. Yeah.
Okay. Handcuffs or scarves?
What's that?
Handcuffs or scarves?
Handcuffs.
Or scarves?
Or scarves.
Yep.
What do you mean by scarves?
A scarf.
A scarf that you put around your neck?
Handcuffs or scarves? You're making this way complicated.
Oh, sorry. Right, yeah. You know how unadventurous I am in this, you know, well. Yeah.
Alice, he's taking all the fun out of this.
I'll go for the scarf. Yeah.
All right. What sound bothers you the most?
Probably my air extraction. It's a little bit loud.
To me, that's a good sound.
Yeah.
That it's working.
Actually, you know what? The compressor will just jump on, and particularly in the middle of class or something like that. And yeah.
That bothers me.
Yeah,
Because it just comes on when it wants to come on.
that's it. Does its thing, then it leaves.
What is your favorite cuss word?
Unfortunately, Flan's probably heard me use a couple in the car, but favorite cuss word. I probably use things like, droopy drawers, clown, donkey.
Are those bad words?
Well, not particularly. It depends on how you're using it. I mean, are we allowed to swear on this, Rob? Is anyone going to be offended? Probably calling someone a fuckwit or something like that.
There's
I'm very
Alan.
not person, but we swear a lot in Australia. I mean, you swear a lot there, but we swear a lot here where, fuck off can be a greeting. You know what I mean? You haven't seen a friend for a long time, and you sort of turn around and there's your friend you haven't seen for 5 years. You go, oh, fuck off.
They speaking of language, we were conversating with Simi Goods, and it was like 3 hours, right?
Yeah.
And he's cool, laid back guy. And Alan Adler, who's a buddy of mine, Woodturner, was watching it with his grandkids. He said after a couple of SHIT bags, he said the kids were rolling. He goes, my daughter came in and turned it all off. So I think you're safe. You're safe. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Perhaps engineer of some sort. An engineer.
Any particular kind?
Yeah, I'm not.
I mean, because what you all do is kind of close to that.
I guess to a degree. Actually, I mean, when I've been teaching, I've found that a lot of the students are engineers. They're attracted to, the exactitudes you can get from woodworking and stuff like that. And go.
Yeah, Jeff Lefkowitz and David Duyard's on here, and I'm gonna probably figure what you do is probably pretty close to engineering.
There is engineering. Yeah, no, you're right. That's true, especially with chairs. That's true.
Especially with chairs.
Yeah. I'll think of another job. I don't know.
What would you like on your tombstone?
Was good to his mum.
Oh. Is your mom still with us?
Yeah.
When's the last time you saw
her? So she's kind of in quarantine, but my son and I went down a few weeks ago to see her. Like we're keeping
How far away is she?
Well, I grew up in a town, city, about an hour south of Melbourne called Geelong, and so she's down there. And my dad just passed just before Christmas.
All right, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's been a bit to be honest, in that regard. Right. We bloody miss him, but but she's down there.
And minus quarantine, how often would you see her?
About once a month, or something like that. Once every 3 weeks.
Okay.
Something. Yeah.
So we got to get into the conversation.
Yeah.
So where we like to start from is after high school, whatever your equivalent was, and the different things along the path that brought you to where you were.
Well, I left high school early when I was 16 to start an apprenticeship. I did a carpentry joinery apprenticeship in Geelong.
Wait a second. Wait, you left high school early?
Yeah.
Because you were too smart, or you got kicked out?
No, well, typically, like my parents both left high school at 15 to do, Dad to start his apprenticeship. He did an apprenticeship in fitter and turning and diesel mechanic. And that was just the general age that you started an apprenticeship.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at, how do you leave high school early?
Well, I mean, there are some like a tech, they're not really around anymore, but the tech schools, you could go to tech school where the whole school was set up towards you eventually starting an apprenticeship. I wasn't at one of my brother went to a different one, and my folks wanted to send me there as well. But yeah, I just left at a regular age to start an apprenticeship. Basically, to do my carpentry apprenticeship. And that, it was where I learned how to do joinery. Basically, it's where I learned how to do hand cut mortise and tenons, and just learning sort of stuff. It was kind of funny that the course we went to school, they would teach you all these things. Hadn't been for a long time, I think. And at the time, we all enjoyed doing it, but then we go back to our bosses and just sort of butt join everything and blow it together with a, So it seemed a bit antiquated at the time, but I'm eternally grateful that it was.
All right, so you leave high school early. You go and get an apprenticeship with whom?
A sociopath named Donald. The Donalds aren't doing very well. They're just, I don't know. I don't know if it's something to do with the name. It curses them, something like that. But he used to throw hammers at me.
So how long did you work with Donald?
So an apprenticeship was typically about 4 years. So I was with him for about 4 years. Yeah, and I can read the last day is burnt into my memory forever. It was sort of like, I quit, you're fired. Throwing hammers.
Literally throwing hammers?
He used to throw hammers at me. Yeah, he was an unusual character. It was his way of expressing himself.
But he would throw it like away from you, not at you.
I'll give you an example. So I'm up on a roof. We used to, when I first started doing my apprenticeship, we were still pitching roofs with hardwood, with under purlins and struts and all that sort of business. And I was on top of this roof, and he was down below. And this is the mid-late 80s. And there was this horrible song. He listened to a horrible radio station. And there was this horrible song by, I think it was Mike and the Mechanics. I can't remember what it was called because I've tried to get it out of my brain. He had said to me, when this song's playing, I want you to be quiet. I don't want to hear noise. Because, it was a really mawkish, sentimental sort of song. And so I'm up on the roof, and I couldn't hear the bloody radio. And I was just singing away to myself. I don't know what I was singing. I was just singing some song to myself as I was, knocking battens in. And next minute I hear this, I fucking told you, and this hammer, like a tomahawk, came flying through the air at me, and I just had to duck it. That was an example of a hammer.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a bit of an old school apprenticeship in that regard.
How do you think that affected you professionally and emotionally?
By the end of the apprenticeship, I was emotionally exhausted because it was a bit, it was pretty tense a lot of days. And, to be honest, I was incredibly immature as well. So you got a little immature, smart ass and a psychotic sort of older guy. And, the mix can not always be that good, I mean, we got through it. I'm really grateful that I completed the apprenticeship. But it did sort of, for a little while there, I didn't want to do carpentry because it just put a bad taste in my mouth. But I did. Amongst a few other things, I did a little bit of hospitality in my 20s as well. Just to
okay, hold it. Right. So after you leave the psych ward, then what you do?
My next job, I wanted to get out of Geelong, and so I moved to Melbourne. And my older sister Teresa, she was training to.
How far apart are they?
We're sort of there's a little bit of Irish Catholic going on. So there's my brother Paul. 12 months later, my sister Teresa. 12 months later, me, and 18 months later, my younger sister Jennifer.
So
and then
somebody was on the clock.
Yeah, and then my grandfather from my mum's dad, they came down from Sydney to visit, and he and my dad, Brian, went out to the pub, and my Pop Gus, who was pretty, funny guy, he sort of said to my dad, Brian, you don't have to knock the birdie off the perch every time. Because dad was one of 9 kids, and I think Gus and Minnie, my grandparents, my mum's folks, they were a little bit worried that dad was going to recreate his own family. And they'll be worried how they're going to feed us all, sort of thing. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you go to Melbourne from where you were?
Yeah. So it's just, it's on the other side of the bay, Corio Bay. And my sister was working at St Vincent's Hospital. It was right in the middle of the city, in the inner city. And I got a job there as an orderly. A good friend of mine, Dom, was working there as an orderly. And so I started working as an orderly. And to be honest, it's still one of the best things I ever did for myself.
What is an orderly?
You're like a dog's body in the hospital. So you're carting people around, you're running tests to pathology. But I ended up working in emergency, and basically I was just dealing with people who had psychological problems. I was holding people down, because I was thrashing around as they're trying to operate on them. But when people would die, stuff like that in my hands, and so it was quite an eye opener for me. It sort of got my brain out of my hometown, sort of thing, because I'd have to help clean the bodies down and take them to the mortuary and all that sort of stuff. And, like I was there for about 2 years. But yeah, it was a great thing to do because it just sort of kicked a little bit of purity out.
What was it like to have someone that close to you die? Because you left a pretty traumatic place.
Yeah.
Then you come here and there's this.
It's strange because I was saying this to my older sister the other day. Now, when for some reason, just because I had no exposure, when I first started at the hospital, I was surprised at everyone in there being old. They're going, oh, right, everyone in here is old. All the patients were quite old. And it's like, makes sense, your body's wearing out and all that stuff. But, so I guess there's an expectation. I don't know, you're quite prepared, but when you see someone die for the first time, I was just a bit fascinated by the whole thing. I was looking into this old gent's eyes and see if there was a change, and it was not want to sound ghoulish, but it was just interesting, sad, of course, hearing his relatives and everything like that. But really, when you come in for blood power, there's one minute holding them down and they're fighting for life, and then they don't, sort of thing. It's obviously something that doctors and nurses deal with every day.
Right.
They've got my respect, especially at the moment. I mean, it's just Teresa's a nurse. We've been worried about her. She works in emergency. Yeah. Now, that's sort of like a midwifery emergency, but still, but we've got through. Well, we're going okay. We got on foot pretty quickly and had good lockdown and stuff like that. The caseload is pretty. Yeah.
So is she still in the hospital?
Yeah, she still works at the hospital. Yeah. But
so
yeah,
what's it like for her now with COVID? Is COVID bad there?
No, it hasn't been bad here. They lock. Well, partly we're an island, so all the planes stop flying in. Just Australians coming back mainly, and we've had a pretty strict lockdown. Not as strict as New Zealand, but pretty strict. I was still able to come to work because I work on my own. But yeah, they got onto it. All the different governments worked in well together. It's been pretty impressive. So, hey, Georgie boy. No, it's my brother-in-law.
Hey, Georgie. What's up, Paul? Paul had kind words for you.
Ah, cool.
Paul Canadian Woodworks. Hey, how's it been?
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, he's got to go to the barbecue.
Nice.
Okay, so you're in the hospital for 2 years.
Yeah. And from there, I went overseas. I guess there's a bit of a tradition amongst young Australians because we probably feel like we're a long way away from everywhere else. I think that's changed a bit now. But where we're good travelers. We'd like to travel a lot. You like to get away from Australia because we've had this thing called cultural cringe. And it's mainly for European Australians where they just don't think, if it's happening somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, that is probably going to be better than Australia. I don't think it's the same now. It was a bit of a hangover from the 20th century, and so the idea was that you go and sort of spread your wings and go and other stuff like that. I went to Ireland, England, and Europe, and places. I didn't actually go to the States. For some reason, I had no real interest in coming to the States. It wasn't until my buddy Pete got me to come over, and I love it. I love visiting America now. So
how long were you? How long were you in Europe?
A bit over a year.
What did you do for work?
Oh, jeez. Wow, I had some ripper jobs. I tried to get some orderly work. It was a little bit rough. And then, the worst job I had cleaning apartments in like the really expensive area in Mayfair and places like that. I mean, there was some places, but I was with these two lads, Nick and Ray. Nick and Ray looked like they got out of the big house. They're pretty rough fellas. I made the mistake of making a joke one day. I was in the back of the van with all the cleaning fluids, and I was just trying to G him up a little bit. And I was saying something about how Aussie rules football is better than soccer. And it just, the look they gave me, I was like, oh.
They're pretty protective about soccer.
Hey?
So they're pretty protective about soccer.
Well, these guys were football hooligans. They had shaved head and jail tattoos and stuff like that. I had one memorable day with Ray where I said, just to make conversation, because he wasn't much of a talker, I said, I like your tattoo there, Ray. Just one of his random tattoos on his arm. Next minute, he's in his underwear showing me all of his tattoos. I was like, oh! Okay.
Well, he wanted to see if you like the other ones.
Which one do you like best now?
Right.
All good, Yeah.
Okay, so after Europe, then what?
Then I came back and just started working again. And then I was just doing mix of things like carpentry, and then I did a bit of hospitality. I was working at a band venue for a while, and the suburb I lived in was Fitzroy. So I only just moved out there for 30 years. It's just up the top of the city, the oldest suburb in Melbourne. So I just loved the old Victorian architecture and everything like that. And it was a working class suburb when I moved there. So it was very cheap. The rent was cheap. It was full of students and artists, musicians. It was a really fun place to live. Now it's an upper middle class suburb, so it's full of BMWs, 80s, and unpleasant people. But yeah.
So how long did you live there? And have we met your wife yet?
No. We got married a lot later. I didn't meet her till much later.
We'll get to it. That's fine. We'll get to it.
So I was in Fitzroy for 30 years, basically, because just until just before Christmas this year, we moved. We bought an apartment in a suburb called East Brunswick, and we live up there now. Across from a footy over, so I can get out there and burn some energy off.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So when you were in this neighborhood that had the cheap rent, when did the woodworking come?
It came back. So I worked at the pub for a bit, and then that place closed down. It was actually a really great place to work. Really great boss. It's a bit of a family vibe sort of, and just bands every night of the week, stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. But I had a friend, Cam, who was working on film sets. Through him and a couple other people, I got into doing film sets. That was a nice segue back into, woodwork. I was working in theatre, television, and film sets for a few years in Melbourne and Sydney. That was a lot of fun. It was just, in those days, there was just a lot of guys from the different wood trades. Or we had joiners all in together, sort of thing. And I learned, sharing your with someone is a good way of learning something, because they're doing something in a way you've never done before, and it's just a good way to learn. And it can be a monotonous job, set building. Sometimes you're knocking out flat, the walls and units, all that sort of stuff. But it got to the point where there was jobs where I was working on my own. And I was making. There's one in particular, the Pacific, Spielberg. Is it Spielberg? I got to about 18 months just making period furniture. Anything they couldn't find or had to look at brand, they come down with a picture of, that they need made, and I'd do a couple of prototypes, and they'd say, yeah, do that one, and I'd make 20 of that, and that was a great. I mean, I was just making them out of MDF and pine and all that sort of stuff. But then the sort of beam painters would then make it look like whatever wood mahogany or something like that, So that was fun for a while, and it was actually through that in between films. Because typically big American films shooting down here. Like I did one of the Star Wars films in Sydney. They'd go for about 10 months or something like that, and then you'd just be left to your own devices, So I'd do carpentry, but I was doing more and more furniture as well for people, and just quickly segued across. Realised furniture was what I really wanted to do, and segued across, and history.
So at what point did you decide that you could survive on your own making furniture?
I haven't decided that yet.
I started a little bit talking to David this morning, and I think I probably want to get into it more. Is what do you do when it's slow? Pay the bills, the consistency, the marketing, all the stuff that keep you up at night.
What do I do for the stress release?
Yeah, how do you deal with those things?
Well, my son would tell you that I watch Japanese anime, which I do. I come home and I'll bang a couple of Japanese anime out and feel a bit more relaxed.
Okay.
Just sensical stories and, crazy sort of animation. I don't know. I did probably things like that. I've started jogging recently.
Good. I need to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably going to get on a bike.
Yeah, bike's a little less low pay, but I've got the footy oval across the road from me, so I can just go there and bounce around the grass.
Jogging's intense.
Yeah, well, on the grass it's a little bit better. I mean, I turn 50 next month. So I look 30, but no, it's 50.
You do. Okay, so let's go back to the question. At what point or what sale did you realize I want to do this for a living on my own?
That probably happened, about 15, 16 years ago. I was kind of happy just mixing things up a bit, doing carpentry and joinery and the odd sets, theatre, working with a mate doing theatre sets for a while, doing ballet and stuff like that, and just mixing the whole thing together. And I kind of enjoyed doing that for a while. But just more and more, I just wanted to do furniture. I just wanted to focus on it and become really good. I've always really loved, since my apprenticeship, I've loved joinery. So I wanted to do something where, because a lot of those other things, there's not a lot of joinery going on, or none. It's just things like that. And so that was where my interest lay. And I kind of felt to an extent that perhaps I hadn't done what I really had. I'd never really done exactly what I do before that. It was just, you work, you sort of get your work, that's what you do. I'm from a working class background sort of thing. So, you get your job and you work your job and, you get bills and sort of stuff. And that was the mentality up with sort of thing. So it seemed a bit risky going off and doing something that wasn't pure as getting a wage, To an extent.
Let me tell you, for me, it still is.
Oh, yeah. No, totally. Yeah. I'm with you. What are we doing?
Right. Okay, but go ahead. So you decide to do this. You take the step. Now, when you did this, did you have a shop? Did you have tools? Did you have any money saved?
I remember early jobs working in people's backyards, in my backyard, just working where I could, basically.
So you had no shop?
No, not for a bit. No, because I was still mixing it in with doing carpentry jobs. And with carpentry, you sort of load up your ute and, or your pickup, as you call them there, and just go to the job and load in and do your work at the house. And, so if someone wanted something built, like a freestanding bit of furniture, I would actually literally build it in their house half the time or in mine, or, just make do. And I think that's probably a pretty common story, because to set up a furniture workshop, that's a big outlay. And
big.
I desperately didn't want to get into debt to start with, because I didn't know if it was going to work, And so, but then I found the best way, and I'd recommend this to any young person who wants to do furniture making. If you can get into a group workshop, a shared workshop, that's the best way to go. You might have to deal with some politics and some personalities and stuff like that. It's definitely worth it, because I was in a group workshop for a long time. And so you're sharing the machines and all that sort of stuff that you got in your face. That's a really great way to go. Yeah. And I probably, that's when I took off when I was in a group workshop. That your overheads are nothing
so low.
It's nice and low. So you can concentrate on what you're doing. You can concentrate on not making much money.
Build your brand.
Yeah. And, I was trying to do it as low risk as possible, but, you kind of got to learn on the job. It's not like you've got time to go, well, I'll work out how to do this first and then I'll make it for someone. You just can't do that,
Nope.
You'll say, yeah, I can make that for you, no problem, and
go figure it out.
Yeah, I'll figure it out, and become an alcoholic in the process. No.
Yeah, that's you have to figure it out. Okay, so you're in a shared workshop for how long?
Maybe about 12 years or something like that. 10
Wow.
years.
So in a shared workshop, you were able to build your name up and start saving money because the overhead's low.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And, during that time I was, towards the end of that time, we started a family, had Flan and stuff like that as well. So, you really start to feel it then, because I didn't get married until I was 39. And then we had years where we just sort of, hang out.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know, that sense of responsibility kicks in too,
That changes things.
Yeah. So I was pretty focused. And I just realized I had to be. And there was a part of me that just felt terrified at the idea of having to go back and working for someone else.
Failure's not an option.
Yeah. I had to tell myself it wasn't an option. I just didn't want to do it. But, that said, of course I'd do it if I had to. I'd do whatever.
You have to.
Yeah, you do what you have to do, sort of thing, I'd go back and do carpentry if I had to. You just got to make things work. But, but I'd never done that before where I felt I was really pushing myself to do something that I wanted to do. And it seemed to come from nowhere, you know, the oomph that I was giving myself, sort of thing. Just I was just that determined to do it. I just never experienced that before, because I guess it made me realize that perhaps, you know, I drifted along a little bit. I do, because you can afford to, just earning a wage, and, you know, in being in a job, you pop in there in the morning and leave in the night, and, you know, your life is yours and stuff like that. So, but there's so many more tentacles to furniture making. You know, you've got to look after getting yourself out there. Yeah. Thank God for Instagram.
Yep, absolutely.
It's free.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're in a shared workshop for 12 years, get a family. When did you start concentrating on chairs?
Well, I was working at a woodworking school here, Melbourne Guild of Fine Woodworking, with a fellow called Alistair Boll. And I started there to help build his furniture. He had 2 streams going at the time, but he was getting people out from America. Chris Ward's came out once, that was after me, but we had Pete Delbick, and you know, he's one of my best now. Sort of, we just hit it off, but more than that, not more than that, but doing a Windsor chair sort of sent, you know, going, ooh. It was scratching my joinery itch, you know, because the joinery is just bomb-proof. I love the joinery on Windsor chairs. You know, far more durable than pretty much the style of chair. So I was assisting, but I was able to do the class as well. And so I ended up doing 2 chairs with Pete while he was down here. That was about 12 years ago, something like that, 11, 12 years ago. And I didn't look back there. I just wanted to do chairs from that point. You know, before that, I'd been doing sort of tables and whatnot.
But how do you go from doing whatever you need to do to pay the rent to I'm only going to do chairs?
Well, I got a big commission early on, a dining setting, and I nearly had a stroke a few times doing that, because it was one of those ones where I kind of bit off a lot, you know.
But you have to.
Yeah, totally. But it it wasn't like it was a design I'd done before. Like I was at that time, I was just doing traditional chairs, and I'd only done a handful of chairs. And this was a whole different design. It's still a traditional style with a sort of bamboo style things and things like that. But it just had this different rest system with this different joinery. And the thing with Windsor chairs, the joinery in space, compound angles in space, you know. So how do you solve that problem? You know, I had a couple of sweaty email conversations with Pete about it. He's going, good luck. No, I'm sure he was very helpful. No, but you got to work that stuff out. And so I got that done, and that was a bit of a watershed moment, getting through that. Knew that I could do it then, and so I kept pushing myself, whatever. And I just was making more and more chairs, getting better and better at it, which is that's how it works, isn't it? You know, if you're focused on it and you're doing it more and more, you just get better at doing it.
Naturally.
Yeah. And from there, I mean, I still love, I love all Windsor chairs, to be honest. I love English chairs and American chairs, but I really love the American chairs because that's what I learned from Pete. Very dynamic sort of angles. But I really wanted to do my own designs after a time. I also love Welsh stick chairs. You know, I love the simplicity of them. Vernacular chairs in general, I really love. Me, you know, a few million other people these days.
Okay, let me ask you, and I was talking to David this morning, and I think he and Jeff are still on here. There seem to be trees.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
There seem to be one guy or a couple of guys, and then people branch off from those trees. How many trees are there? Like, how many guys?
In chair making?
Yeah, that have the trees.
When they, early on in England, they sort of industrialized it. So you had the guys, name's gone right out of my head. The guys up in the forest basically turning beach blanks for a camp. What are the bloody called? Come on, someone watching. What are they called?
Right.
Anyway, there's those guys. Then you had guys down in the factory saddling seats. They divided the labour up, to a large degree. So after a certain time, there wasn't a lot of just a single guy doing the whole thing in England.
You said budgets.
Bodgers, yeah. Dave said, yeah, Bodger, thanks. Bodgers, Adam, it's all coming through now. Thanks, guys.
Good to see everyone's paying attention.
Yeah, they're all throwing like lobbing Bodgers at me. No more Bodgers! Unless they were in a rural area, it was like a village guide sort of making the chair from start to sort of thing. The labour divided up early on. And it was the same in America after a certain time, because Windsor's moved across to America pretty quickly. The modern version of the Windsor. And they were working in timber. So in England, they were mainly using elm for seats, which is very split. The English, the tops of the legs are right out close to the edge, whereas in America, where
okay, one second, hold up.
Okay.
Elm is very hard to work with.
It can be.
Do you find that or no?
No, it is, but I mean, we've got some horrible timbers to work with down here, so elm feels like a dream.
It's all relative. You're right.
Yeah. So yeah, when it moved across to America, places like Philadelphia and New York and places like that, they were initially using hardwoods and things like that, but they were the pines in America, white pine, southern yellow pine, stuff like that. They get big, and because it's pine, even though they're sort of like a fairly sturdy pine, you don't want to put the leg out near the edge of the seat. So they had them sort of move the tops of the leg closer to the seat. But you needed to leave the bottom of the legs out there for stability. So all of a sudden, bang, you've got this new dynamic looking chair. And so what happens down the bottom, you laid it up the top. So then they sort of changed the angles up the top as well. And that's why the difference between American English chairs happened fairly early, quite dark.
All right, cool. All right. So, okay, we have 10 minutes. You want to give us a tour?
Of the workshop?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't cleaned up.
Not a problem.
All right. So,
okay, do you want to turn the camera the other way?
Yeah, I'll do this. There we go. So a little bit of a messy bench at the moment. So I've just been working on these little shaker numbers here. I'm just about to put some finish on these dovetails.
What kind of finish are you going to put on those?
These will be Osmo. They're to match a big set of drawers I did. So I don't do a lot of this work these days, but when I get it, I really enjoy it. These are actually for some friends of mine, Wayne, Maven and Jen. He's an amazing stair maker in Sydney and joiner. I would recommend looking at his stuff. What can we look at? So here's all my bending forms and different jigs. a little bit of a mess at the moment. Different jigs, all that sort of stuff. This has got the, you can't really see in there. It's my tool cabinet. It's got all the Festool stuff and all that sort of business. There's the wall, planes. So it's really not that interesting. There's the green machines. That's the number 14 chair. That's the one I've been teaching.
Very nice.
Clamp rack, the wheelie clamp rack, which I find very handy, being able to wheel that around because it's a decent sized workshop. So
how much space do you have? Someone just asked that when you said that.
So probably about 150 square feet or something like that. 160 something.
No, it's got to be more than that.
You know what? Even though I was a carpenter, I'm terrible at that type of thing. I don't know how big it is.
Yeah, because square feet is width times length.
Yeah. So it probably looks bigger than what it actually is, but yeah, I mean, it is a decent size, I suppose.
Do you ever take on jobs where you have to hire help, or you handle it all yourself?
I do it myself, and I do that on purpose. I sort of want to just do it myself. There's my timber rack. So I've got all this. My father-in-law, Rob, I'm looking after some wood for him. Some New Zealand kauri. I think it was sort of cut for a pattern maker. It's all sort of similar size. I've done some chair seats with that. It's pretty unusual stuff, and some tables. It's thousands of years old. They dig it out of the mud over in New Zealand. Yeah. And here's just some wood for some new jobs. I've got a big settee I've got to do. So I've got, you can't really see it, but this is a blackwood I use a lot. I don't know if you can see that colour.
Okay.
So
looks kind of like walnut.
Yeah, well, it's sort of similar density. It's a little bit lighter, generally. But I buy big wide slabs of it, basically, because the grain can be a bit changeable, the colour. And so I can get the whole chair out of one seat. This one's going to have American ash spindles, steam bent spindles. It's kind of, I'll show you this one out here.
Nice.
So this is a rod back settee. And I'm doing a contemporary version of that. And, I've got a couple of Welsh stick chairs to make. I just have these chairs here so people can come and have a seat. It's not really a showroom. It's a bit of a shambles, really.
Looks like a showroom to me.
That's my silver ute, the silver flyer, and it's raining here today. Quite cold. There's a gum tree.
How much stuff do you put on the back of that truck?
Well, yeah, I mean, I do load it up. I've been meaning to get a rack for the roof as well. Because generally I've just get big boards and yeah.
Throw them on top.
Yeah, right on top. Yeah. But that's about it, really. It's not that interesting. There's my drop saw or miter saw. It's got a little upstairs area, a little mezzanine upstairs sort of thing. So kitchenette. But that's about it.
That's good enough. So when you quote a job and you do it alone, you got to give yourself a lot of time to finish it, right?
I give sort of one thing I learned early on was to give realistic lead. And if they take the job away because it's going to take too long, then that's good for both of us. Price things properly and give proper lead times. You take a lot of pressure off yourself that way, And so if it's too expensive, then then it's too expensive. You don't want to do jobs and not get.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, basically, people know when they come to me, they know that I work on my own, and so they know that I'm sort of going to spend a bit more time trying to take a lot of care with things done. And so I haven't really had anyone complain about things.
How many chairs would you say you make a year?
It's a little bit of a mixed bag because I don't really know, to be honest. I've never actually counted it up. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I've ever had a year where I've just done chairs.
What else do you do besides chairs?
Well, you know, like little flat jobs like that. So I'll have a few of those each year as well. But also now I've started teaching.
Right, you do classes.
Yeah. So last year was the first full year. I think last year was the first full year of me teaching here. So I came. Pete invited me to come and teach at his school in New Hampshire, in Rollinsford, and which was a really great experience. And he'd been trying to sort of, you know, give me a nudge into teaching for a while, but I just didn't feel I was for a while. I'd done some teaching with some other people and hadn't always been a great experience sort of thing. But
why is that?
Different reasons. I didn't always like the way things were being taught or personalities, you know, that sort of stuff. But I don't know, and maybe I just wasn't ready to teach either. I'm not a great public speaker. I don't love it, you know. I've got better at it. I've just had to, you know, through teaching. But there's that feeling of freezing up. You got 5 people staring at you, and you sort of go to say, your brain turns to mud.
That ain't public speaking, man. 50, 500, 5? No.
Look, I gave one of the worst best man speeches in history. It was one of my close friends, and I was talking to his you know, soon-to-be brother-in-law and father-in-law beforehand. They were both giving speeches too, and they'd written their speeches out. And they're going, "Oh, didn't you write anything out?" And I said, "Look, I know this fella. You know, I'll be fine." And I got up there, and it was terrible. It's just like a couple of decades ago, and I still get a shiver up my spine when I think about it. I just froze. I had a beer in my hand, and you know, well, it was a stinker. I stunk up the room.
Well, that's good because it's something that reminds you to never do that again. Be prepared.
Oh yeah, no, it taught me. Oh, it absolutely did. You know, so yeah, no, I mean, I at first I was.
Oh, wait a second. We got 10 seconds. Yes. We need to get off and get back on.
All right.
All right. It's about to stop, and we're going to lose it. All right. We get off and get back on.
So you'll just invite.
Sorry about that, man.
No, that's good.
Welcome back, Dave. We were just talking. I looked up and said 12 seconds. I was like, yikes. Because when you don't get it, you lose it.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Really?
Yeah, so you have to properly close it.
Yeah, okay, right. Gotcha. What were we saying? Oh, just about teaching. Yeah, I mean, I had to really prepare myself for the classes. My first class, like with Pete, it was pretty easy. I mean, my teaching assistant was Peter Galbert, so, you know, that made it pretty easy, that first class. I felt at ease. But then when I came back to Australia and, you know, booked in these classes throughout the year, but for my first class, Peter had advised me just to do 2 people. So I only have 2 per class. Because they're a complex thing, and, you know, I don't want anyone to get lost along the way or, you know, or anything like that.
It's a lot of information.
It's a lot of information. It really is. But for the first class, I had 2, but one of them came all the way from Texas, Jeff. Lovely guy.
From Texas?
Yeah, he flew in the day before and flew out the day after.
He flew from Texas to Australia to take your class?
Yep. Yeah, he's a legend. Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
He's since made 5 other chairs, and beautiful looking chairs, which that makes me really happy. It makes me feel like it was a success if they can go back and make some chairs sort of thing. So, but so Jeff came in, and, you know, he's a super lovely guy, and a friend of mine, Peter Rhodes from Tasmania, came over and did a class as well. But I was terrified. That first morning, I just went to talk and I went blah, 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 blah. But so what I had to do was just get them to start doing the activity and then start talking after that. I just got so nervous. And then because the pressure was, Jeff's flown all this way, I don't even have a terrible class,
Right.
But
It's a lot of pressure.
What's that?
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it was a bit of pressure. I didn't want him to have a dud time. So, but we got through that first morning, and first morning since then, I'm a little bit nervous. But everyone's there for one reason. Everyone's very friendly, and we have a good time.
So, your first class, how many days?
So the classes are 6 days. Yeah, six-day classes. So we haven't had it for a while because I had to sort of move the classes to the end of the year and then sort of consolidate them a bit, and so hopefully they're still going to happen.
So, and how many do you do a year?
So I think I did 7 last year, and I was going to do 8 this year, but it'll end up being 5 because I think I did 1, or did I do 2? 1 or 2, but at the start of the year, I think 1. Yeah. And then things were changing so quickly, I just sort of barred the rest of the classes. And they wouldn't have, as it was.
How many people?
Just 4 people. Yeah.
4 people.
Yeah. And it's just really manageable, and we have a good time. One thing that probably isn't bad is that for these mid-year classes, my workshop is freezing. It's really, really cold. And I like the cold myself, but I was looking at the photos from the mid-year classes from last year, and everyone's wearing Arctic Explorer jackets, these big puffer jackets. So it doesn't look that comfortable in here. I still had a good time. I had like some heater thing that I rented, but it just, it wasn't cutting the mustard. But yeah, we're getting through it.
So what is it you want? What is it you want someone to take from your class?
Well, probably some of the things I got from doing the classes with Pete. Just the consciousness, being conscious of the wood, of what the wood's doing. If you're just using machines all the time, you can stop thinking stuff, because saw blades make an all grain, so you can just do whatever you want to a degree, sort of. The outcome won't happen. But you have to be really conscious of what's happening with the wood grain, because basically every of a Windsor chair is continuous grain. You can't have any grain runoff or anything like that. So you're basically, taking the strength of the tree, transferring into a chair, and you can do that with a bit of care. But traditionally, components are all split from a log, riven pieces, and so you're guaranteed of grain in that strength of the tree. And you use things from species too, like oak and ash and things. But because I'm generally using kiln dried timber most of the time, which means I don't have to run around the countryside. I live in the city, so trying to get block, like I was doing early on, is ridiculous.
Right.
And so being able to use other species, well, I didn't have to use Australian species, blackwood being the main one, which I love using anyway, but I was suddenly use North American species like walnut, oak, ash. And to be honest, Windsor's come from the Northern Hemisphere, so being able to use those timbers that were originally used in it, you can see why they use them for a reason. So they go with that sort of joinery system, and having smaller sized components because you've got such strong timber as well. Trying to sort of replicate that exactly with Australian timber. They're a little bit Blackwood's been used for, well over a century, the Windsor chairs down here. Windsor chairs down here were generally more of an English style chair. Blackwood's been used for a long time. It's light but strong.
Is that your preferred wood?
For Australian timbers, probably it is. It's the easiest one for me to get. There are other timbers. I think people who follow me on Instagram probably saw a couple of months back I was doing some chairs out of eucalyptus. I was trying to find eucalyptus regnans, mountain ash, and alpine ash as well. And the problem is these days they're of a species when they're sold, but they're also kiln dried to within an inch of their life. So when they're run through the kiln, they do it really quick, really high temperatures. So it actually collapses the structure of the wood to some degree, and then they fluff it up with steam, to then put them out to the timber yards. Which is no good if you steam bend them later. It makes it. You just get lots of collapse and stuff like that. Whereas if I could get those two particular species air dried, they bend like a dream. Strong. They grow big, tall trees, massive trees. I think alpine might be the tallest flowering tree in the world, like that. They grow, or that could be mountain ash. So I just don't have a ready supply of stuff. I'm still searching for that. But I was in the end able to bend some kiln dried stuff, but it wasn't easy. There was a lot of trial and error.
So how did you figure out how to bend kiln dried? Is that a secret you want to share? Or?
Kiln dried timber?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm, a pioneer. People have been doing that for a long time. There are schools that teach in England, and it's just I think there's just a conventional wisdom that went around the sort of woodworking circles, the hobbyist woodworking circles, perhaps, that you can't steam bend kiln dried timber. It can be more difficult, and as I was just suggesting, it depends on how it's been kiln dried as well. What the cooking schedule is. So if it's kiln dried like that without much care, just push through to get out quickly, then you're not going to have as much luck. But one of my favourite bends, like I usually use air dried blackwood, and the blackwood just bends easily. But kiln dried American walnut bends beautifully. It's a beautiful bend. Oak. I just don't have problems with those timbers. Basically, went through trial and error, tried different things, and then apply all that to all of them. So the first bit of kiln dried I bent was a bit of walnut. It was a perfectly dry piece of kiln dried walnut, just been sitting in the rack for a year or something like that. And I would give it a whirl, just being told that, and it bent like it just went like that. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, So then I tried all the other species, and they all worked, sort of thing. So, and then just worked my way through different processes. Like I soak all the timbers before, I'll cut the bow or whatever I'm sort of doing, or crinoline stretcher, and soak them for 5 days.
Now, what do you soak them in?
So I use PVC plumbing pipes with a cap screwed onto the bottom, and then a screw-on lid on the top. So they've got to be completely submerged in water. So I sort of put them in there and have a filler in the top, and then put it down, sort of thing. And
so when you soak them, do you use Evian bottled water or just regular tap?
Just straight out of the hose. Yeah, I've just got the side of the building there. I think that's skill from. Yeah,
I didn't know if you had the water imported. What have you ever had a chair disaster?
A chair disaster. If I did, it would have been early on. Not a disaster. I'm sort of pretty careful, but one thing I learned was I had some green and I started turning. I had to do a pre-turn right back, and I'd just never done it before. So I partly turned it, and I had to go home, and I thought I'll turn them tomorrow, and I came back the next day. Oh, you know.
You won't be turning me. So how long did it take you when you were doing carpentry and you got into the chairs?
Yeah.
When you did these workshops, were you a sufficient turner at the time?
No. I learned turning when I was working for Alistair. He was doing big classes, you know, with up to, I think one class like 13 people a class, and I was doing all the turning. So he showed me how to do a basic turn, and turning's one of the things that you pick up pretty. It's not that hard to do basic
Spindles.
Yeah. So this bamboo style, which is as simple as it gets, basically. So I ended up doing while I was there some bed posts, stuff like that, which were fairly elaborate. But I'm a pretty simple turner, you know, and I tend to keep it that way.
Right. So it's a whole nother thing.
It is. There's some genius turners out there, and some of the stuff they do is just mind-boggling. You know, it's incredible. Yeah, I follow a number of turners, and you know, always marvel at their work. You know.
Yeah, we have Dave on Thursday.
Dave Dolby, or
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Let me tell you something. That took a lot of whining and dining.
So
He went from
I can go back and see that, can I?
Say it again?
So these are recorded, are they? Like,
yeah,
can I go back
recorded.
and
Yes.
I'll go. Yeah, he's a classic, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good one.
So yeah, where do you want to go next?
Well, the teaching is here to stay. I can imagine myself teaching until I drop dead.
So that's a part of your brand now.
It is, yeah. It's an important part. I mean, I like passing on the knowledge.
It's important.
It is important. You know, I mean, I've had some people say, "Oh, well, you know, how you do your designs and stuff like that," but you know, people can do my design. I've seen people doing some of my stuff, you know, for themselves, and if someone wanted to make my design, there's nothing I could do to stop them, and so there's no point really worrying about that stuff, you know.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
The people you've seen doing your designs, did they at least go to your class?
No, because they're overseas. These people are overseas, you know, in different countries. So,
how do you feel about that?
Well, you know, I had a fella contact me recently, and he did a version of one of my designs, his own sort of version of it, which was quite cool, and he wanted to teach it and stuff. But he wrote is, you know, super classy.
Yes.
But there's people who sort of, you know, I'll just stumble across a picture on Instagram going, oh, that's interesting. That's familiar.
I was talking to Tom from Semi Goods, and he does the weaving.
Oh, yeah.
And he's been doing it for 12 years.
Yeah.
And he said, he posted a picture, and someone said to him, oh, your work is like X. Who copied it? So
yeah, it's just going to happen, you know. I kind of look at it as, you know, if my work inspires someone to do stuff, then, you know,
it's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, look, if they're a hobbyist woodworker, then go for your life, you know, have a crack. I mean, I've got plans. Jeff Lefwitz is doing plans for me at the moment. I feel sorry for him because I'm a terrible correspondent, and I get back to him too slowly.
He was on earlier. We
Was he
talked about him with Dave. Yeah.
Did he say anything bad about me?
No. No. He's a great guy.
It's too long to write emails.
Yeah, but
He's great.
yeah, he was on when I was talking about when I spoke about the engineering part. I was kind of referring to him.
Yeah.
Because for him to lay those plans out,
Yeah.
it's got to be like engineering.
No, well, he's very clever too. He understands all that stuff really well. And, you know, like his class, I've obviously never taken one of his classes, but from what I hear, the way he's invented all these different gigs and everything like that to make it a bit seamless for the students. And, you know, because you're trying to get a lot done in a short period of time. He's very clever with that stuff. So, you know, yeah.
Okay, now, Adam Woodworks asked, when will they be ready? I guess he's assuming your plans. Well, if Bern returns emails, maybe they get done sooner.
Yeah. This year, you know, it will be here at some stage.
I don't know if Jeff is still on here, but he can chime in.
Yeah, as long as I play my part. Jeff will get them done, but as long as I play my part. Yeah. No, he's well on his way there, sort of thing. So it'll happen. Yeah.
All right. So what do you find to be the most challenging part about doing your business?
Oh, the paperwork. I hate it with a passion. With a deep, deep, deep passion. Yeah.
Okay, do you have anyone doing the paperwork?
Well, Alice, my wife Alice, there's Jeff, says this year is doable as long as I pay my part.
What's up, Jeff?
If it's next year, it's fine as well, you know, as long as I play my part.
So how many chairs is he doing for you?
Oh, just one, just the number 14 chair I've been to. So I've been looking at some of my other designs and working out, because I'd like to introduce another chair to teach as well. I've just got to work that out yet. I haven't decided, you know, just want to do something that people want to do, because the idea is I'm not trying to sell a product. I'm using a chair to pass on skills. And the number 14, it's just a nice little chair. I really like the design. And they get out of it as far as to then go on, push themselves to make it another chair. You know, it's the same thing with an apprenticeship. You learn a lot in apprenticeship, but you learn twice as much the year you go out on your own. You know, you've got to just rely on yourself, sort of thing. So, yeah, you know, after learning from Pete, you know, going and then doing sort of chairs, you know, I went really quickly commission chair. It was crazy, but I learned so much that helped me out since, you know, by pushing. So one thing that you'll get all the basics, and I'll explain things to you, and then questions, the class, and all that sort of stuff. When you go home and then do the class yourself, like Jeff has done, Peter Larkus has done, sort of thing. You know, there's a few other people who have gone and sort of done a second chair. You'll learn doing that. You really start to sort of come into your own a bit pretty quickly. Yeah. So I mean, that answers your question. I want to give the basics, and they can go off and, you know, learn from there. Thing. Like, I found when I did the class with Pete, I ended up adapting the knowledge that I took from that, and to even if dining tables or anything like that. It just completely opened my eyes up. I didn't realize they were closed. So yeah.
You don't know until you know.
That's it. You know, stupid doesn't know stupid.
I can attest to that. So I really appreciate you coming on with us.
Thanks for asking me, Rob.
And giving us your time.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy you having a sense of humor by me joking with the picture.
Hey, you can only have a sense of humor.
Exactly. So thanks again, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rob. Really nice to talk to you. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
But when I'm over next, I know we talked about it, you know, I just missed you last time sort of thing, but when I'm over next, when that is, like 10 years now.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? I'll see
Yep.
you out years.
All right, brother. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Have a good night. Enjoy your day at work because you're just getting started.
Yeah.
All right.
Enjoy your
Good day.
sleep.
Yes.
See ya.
Thank you, brother.